Welcome back. In today's Explainer, we're diving into the fascinating multi-step journey of becoming a temporary foreign worker in Canada. It's a massive process, right? You've got huge economic forces pulling people in, rigorous bureaucratic checks, strict legal protections on the ground, and yeah, some pretty stark physical realities to deal with. Let's get right into it. So let's start with the dream itself, global mobility. If you look at international travel and recruitment platforms, like Travul.org, for instance, they're pointing to 2026 as a boom year for international job opportunities. The push for better income, stability, and global exposure is honestly stronger than ever. It's literally sending waves of skilled workers across the globe looking for their next big opportunity.
Here's our agenda for today. We're covering global visa job demand, Canada's chicken economy, vetting genuine job offers, foreign worker rights, and finally, surviving the Canadian climate.
All right, Section 1, Global Visa Job Demand and the Push for Mobility. Why is Canada taking the top spot right now? Well, they're facing some severe, ongoing labor shortages. But the real game changer here is the built-in pathways they offer. We're talking about visa sponsorships under the Labor Market Impact Assessment, or LMIA. Think of an LMIA as essentially a government permission slip allowing an employer to hire from abroad. Right now, there is an incredibly high demand for agricultural workers in particular. And with competitive starting salaries ranging from $40,000 to $90,000 Canadian dollars a year, it's a massive pull factor for anyone seeking a fresh start. Moving on to Section 2, Canada's chicken economy, the economic engine. To truly grasp why the demand is so high, we have to look at the sheer scale of Canada's agricultural engine. Get this, the Canadian chicken sector alone contributes an eye-popping $12.2 billion to the national GDP. Let that number sink in for a second. It sustains over 112,000 jobs across the country and pays $4 billion in taxes, completely without relying on government subsidies. We're talking about a massive, self-sustaining economic powerhouse that absolutely needs a steady, reliable workforce to keep the lights on. If we break this down regionally, Ontario is leading the pack, sustaining over 41,000 jobs in this sector alone. Quebec and British Columbia are right behind them with over 24,000 jobs and 18,000 jobs respectively. These massive regional economies are incredibly reliant on steady labor, and since they can't always find that locally, they have to look globally to fill those gaps. And to protect this vital economic engine, industry groups are highly active in the nation's capital. Take the chicken farmers of Canada. They've logged an incredible 800 communication reports in the federal lobbyist registration system. They are in constant communication with federal departments about things like agriculture, health, and international trade policy, all to make sure their sector stays stable, competitive, and fully staffed. Let's jump into Section 3, Vetting Genuine Job Offers, the reality check. So the demand is huge, right? But you can't just pack a bag and hop on a plane. You have to pass a pretty rigorous reality check first. Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, or IRCC, uses a strict 4-step checklist just to make sure an employer's job offer is completely genuine. First, they verify if the business is actively operating. Second, does the job fulfill a reasonable need for the employer? Third, can the employer actually fulfill the terms they're offering, like the wages and hours? And fourth, are they complying with all provincial and federal employment laws? This whole system is specifically designed to weed out scams targeting vulnerable newcomers. Plus, as a prospective immigrant, you face your own background checks. You're required to provide a police certificate to prove you don't have a criminal record that would make you inadmissible to Canada. Now, depending on where you're from, this might be called a police clearance certificate or a good conduct certificate, but either way, it has to be provided along with a certified English or French translation. It's just another strict but totally necessary bureaucratic hurdle you have to clear before you ever book that flight. Which brings us to Section 4, Foreign Worker Rights, looking at life on the ground. Okay, let's say you clear all the vetting and you've arrived. What do your rights actually look like day to day? Well, as a temporary foreign worker, you actually have the exact same rights as a Canadian citizen. There are strict rules here. Your employer absolutely must give you a signed contract on or before your first day, and they must pay for private health coverage until your provincial insurance kicks in. On the flip side, there are things they cannot do. They cannot force you to do unsafe work, they cannot hold your passport, and they certainly cannot deport you. Those are massive violations of Canadian law. And what happens if an employer breaks these rules? You do not need their permission to seek help or medical care. You can confidently and confidentially call the Service Canada tip line at 1-866-602-9448. Or you can use their online portal to report it. They literally have agents ready who speak over 200 languages, making sure you are protected and heard no matter where you're from. You can even leave anonymous messages if you're worried about retaliation. Also, if you happen to be working in primary agriculture, your employer is legally obligated to ensure your housing meets some very specific, strict standards. We're talking safe, non-overcrowded spaces. You need working fire extinguishers and smoke detectors, functioning toilets and showers that give you actual privacy, and a constant supply of both hot and cold drinking water. The entire system is built to ensure basic human dignity is respected while you're out there helping to build their economy. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Surviving the Canadian Climate and Adapting to the Environment. So, you've navigated the economic data, the visa vetting, and your legal rights. But there is one last, totally unavoidable hurdle to moving to Canada: the weather. The physical transition can be a huge shock, especially if you're coming from a tropical climate. To put it in perspective, just look at the extreme seasonal swings in Ottawa. In July, you're enjoying a beautiful average high of 26 degrees Celsius. But January, you're stepping out into an average high of -5 and some seriously bone-chilling lows of -15. That is a freezing reality that for sure requires an entirely new wardrobe. So, stepping back and looking at this entire journey, from those flashy promises of global travel agencies to the incredible impact you'd have on a multi-billion-dollar economy, navigating the strict legal protections and braving those freezing Canadian winters, what do you think? Between all the bureaucratic challenges and the potentially massive economic rewards, is the Canadian dream worth the leap? It's definitely something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.